Hello everybody, my name is Lana Glosha and welcome to my channel, the best place for artists of all levels using colored pencil as a fine art medium. This video is part of a series in which I go through all of the art supplies that I use to make colored pencil paintings on sanded paper. In part one of this video, I go through my entire supply list and I walk you through the supplies that I use and how you can adjust the supply list to best meet your own specific needs. In this video, part two of this series, I'm going to be answering the question, Lana, what colored pencil should I use on sanded paper? I have been working with colored pencils on sanded paper for years, and I just love how this combination of supplies enhances the capabilities of my colored pencils. However, it is so crucial that you know about the pencils that you're using and that you select the right colored pencil for the job. If you would like to learn about which colored pencils you should use for your colored pencil paintings on sanded paper, then this video is definitely for you. And if you stay into the end, you'll get to view a free excerpt from my course, Intro to Classical Colored Pencil Painting. This is an online course where I take you through the entire colored pencil painting process and help you create your own masterpiece with colored pencils on sanded paper. To keep this video super organized, I'm breaking it down into 5 parts. In the first part of this video, I'm going to define the difference between oil-based and wax-based colored pencils. In the second part of this video, I'm going to show you how oil and wax-based pencils behave differently on sanded paper. In the third part of this video, I'm going to share with you pencil profiles in which I highlight the key characteristics and attributes of each of the major pencil lines out there, and I'm going to share with you exactly what I use. In the fourth part of this video, I'm going to share with you some factors that you should consider when you are purchasing your own colored pencil set. And in the fifth part of this video, you'll see the colored pencils in action with a short excerpt from my online course. You may have heard me or another colored pencil artist describe colored pencils as being wax-based or oil-based. But then you might have been really confused when you went to the art supply store and didn't see these descriptions anywhere. This is because these descriptions are largely artist inventions used to describe the different characteristics or qualities of colored pencils, and they aren't meant to divide colored pencils into 2 distinct mediums. A pencil that is described as oil-based is a pencil that has less wax content in the lead. These leads tend to be harder and will hold a sharper, stronger point. When you lay this lead onto the paper, you're going to get a little bit more transparent coverage. However, as the wax in your pencil increases and you're working with a more wax-based colored pencil, your core is going to get softer, you're going to be able to lay down more material at a time, and these pencils tend to be able to burnish and blend with a little less effort. However, they don't hold that really sharp point that the oil-based colored pencils do. These pencils exist on a spectrum from very oily colored pencils to very waxy colored pencils and pencils in between. Of the major brands of colored pencils available, I would classify the Polychromos colored pencils by Faber-Castell and the Pablo colored pencils by Caran d'Ache as the oiliest colored pencils. These pencils hold a very sharp point and lay down very transparent color. Derwent drawing pencils would be at the very opposite end of the spectrum. These are some of the waxiest colored pencils that I have used and the most opaque and softest coverage. However, they're not quite a complete set of colored pencils because they only come in 24 colors. If you're going to try these colored pencils, I definitely recommend getting a white. It's so nice to have a really soft, waxy, opaque white in your collection. For a full set of waxy colored pencils, you'll be looking at your Prismacolor Premiers or your Luminance colored pencils by Caran d'Ache. Both of these lines of colored pencils have softer leads and more opaque coverage. Not quite as opaque as that Derwent drawing set, but pretty opaque nonetheless. Derwent Light Fast colored pencils are the newest of these color pencil lines, and they actually exist right about in the middle. They have a mid-level of opacity, they have a mid-level of hardness, so you can kind of get a little bit of both of the characteristics of colored pencils in this particular set. These are the 6 lines of colored pencils that are the most popular and the most accessible to colored pencil artists. However, if there is one that I missed that I have to try out, definitely tell me about it in the comments below and let me know how oily or waxy you think it is. Once you know what to look for, the differences between oil and wax-based colored pencils become more and more obvious as you work with them on a traditional white cotton paper. However, as you move on to sanded paper, the texture and tooth of this paper really exaggerates the difference between these 2 types of pencils. Because there is less wax in an oil-based colored pencil, these pencils are finely ground up by the texture of the paper and are much looser on the surface. With the use of powder blender and a sponge applicator, oil-based colored pencils can become a very forgiving media on sanded paper. You'll be able to manipulate the transparency, blend colors, and even remove pigment off of the sanded paper. I use my oil-based colored pencils to build up the structure and to organize my colored pencil painting. But at a certain point, I start beginning to crave more sheen and opacity, and I've never really been satisfied only using oil-based colored pencils on my colored pencil paintings. When you apply a wax-based colored pencil to sanded paper, it's not going to be finely ground up the same way that your oil-based colored pencils will. So it's not going to be as loose on the surface, and it's not going to be compatible with powder blender. The marks that you make with a wax-based colored pencil are going to be more permanent, and so you need to be more thoughtful about their application, and this might result in you tightening up a little bit. Although your wax-based colored pencils won't glide across the surface the same way that your oil-based colored pencils do, they can be layered, burnished, and blended with solvent to achieve the look that you desire. And because the texture of sanded paper is so aggressive, it actually holds the layers right on top of each other, which allows you to use opaque light values right on top of dark values. So I use oil-based and wax-based colored pencils to build up my colored pencil paintings. However, I use the colored pencils very strategically, selecting a specific colored pencil for a specific job. This strategic use of colored pencils allows me to build up my colored pencil paintings the same way that classical oil painting masters build up their oil paintings. And if this is something that you're interested in learning how to do, then you definitely need to check out my online course, Intro to Classical Colored Pencil Painting. In this section of the video, I'm going to take you through the major brands of colored pencils available. I'm going to share with you their pros and cons, and I'm going to tell you what pencils I use in each set and why. So we'll start with the oil-based colored pencils, and the 2 main brands for oil-based colored pencils are the Pablo colored pencils by Caran d'Ache and the Polychromos colored pencils by Faber-Castell. These pencils are actually more similar than they are different, and you can't go wrong with either one. They're both very high quality colored pencils, and they both have a wide range of colors available that are highly light fast. However, there are subtle differences, and I'm going to share them with you now. Polychromos colored pencils have a round barrel and are a little cheaper per pencil. And it is for this cheaper price that I decided to invest in a large set of Polychromos colored pencils. But I have used several Pablo colored pencils, and I've added them to my set when I've needed a specific color that wasn't available in the Polychromos line. One pencil that I really love from the Pablo Caran d'Ache line is the white. I like the way that this white pencil lays down on my sanded paper, and I use it for my underpaintings. The white Polychromos colored pencil is still great, but I prefer the Pablo pencil for this specific job. When it comes to your wax-based colored pencils, there are much bigger differences between the different lines of pencils. So the main brands out there are your Prismacolor Premier colored pencils, your Luminance colored pencils by Caran d'Ache, and your drawing pencils by Derwent. Now, the drawing pencils by Derwent are kind of their own thing because there are only 24 very subtle colors available, but these colors are all highly light fast and are very rich, soft, and opaque. And so they're nice to add to your selection one at a time, or even add into your selection as a whole set. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend them as your only wax-based set because you're going to be pretty limited on color. Now, Prismacolor and Luminance colored pencils have much larger variety in color, with Prismacolor having about 150 different colors and Luminance having now about 100 colors. However, these pencil lines are very different. Prismacolored pencils are the cheapest option available for artist grade colored pencils. They're what I used when I started out, and they're a great pencil. I've actually made really nice works of art with just Prismacolored pencils. But after a certain point, I started learning more about light fastness in my pencils, and I started caring about the longevity of my colored pencil pieces much more. And when I did my research, I noticed that a lot of the colored pencils in the Prismacolor line just weren't very light fast, which means they're going to degrade over time and you're going to lose a lot of color in your colored pencil paintings, especially if they're up against a window or something. The other deal breaker for me with Prismacolors was that I was having a lot of quality issues with my colored pencils. The lead inside the Prismacolor pencils is known for breaking quite a bit, and sometimes the lead inside the colored pencil actually becomes loose and can move around inside. Now, this might not be a deal breaker for you, especially if you're on quite a big budget, because the difference between your Prismacolored pencils and your Luminance colored pencils per pencil is huge. You can get open stock Prismacolored pencils for about $1 a piece, whereas Luminance colored pencils are going to be $4.50 a piece. And when you buy them in sets, this difference becomes even greater. A full set of Luminance colored pencils can cost $200 or more, whereas a full set of your Prismacolored pencils is going to be under $100. So if the quality issue doesn't bother you, you can totally go for Prismacolors. If you want a higher grade colored pencil, then I would encourage you to upgrade to the Luminance colored pencils, and that is what I use primarily now. These pencils are so well made and are so light fast. I really enjoy working with them, and I think that you will too. I typically like to work with both an oil and a wax-based colored pencil set because this expands the options that I have on my colored pencil painting. However, if you don't have money in the budget for 2 brand new sets of colored pencils, you might consider looking at the Derwent Lightfasts. The light fast colored pencils are very high quality pencil, and as the name suggests, the colors are very light fast. They are going to stick around for a long time on your projects. And these light fast pencils are kind of in the middle. They're neither a traditional oily nor a traditional waxy colored pencil. You'll be able to get that transparency with the powder blender, and you'll be able to build up some opacity as well. You won't have the full range available to you, but it's definitely possible to get away with just using these pencils on a colored pencil painting on sanded paper. Whether you are picking out your very first set of colored pencils or you are shopping around for new colored pencils to add to an already existing collection, there are a few things you should keep in mind during your shopping and selecting process. And these are what you actually want these pencils to do, your personal budget, your artistic goals, and the colors that you're going to need. Since you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you want your colored pencils to perform well on sanded paper. And so far, all of the colored pencils that I've mentioned do perform well on sanded paper, but they have different jobs, roles, and responsibilities in this colored pencil painting process. My preference is to work with one set of oil-based colored pencils so I can get those nice transparent glazes with the use of powder blender, and to have a separate wax set so I can build up those opaque layers. However, as I mentioned earlier, you can get away with using just the Derwent Lightfast, and you'll be able to get a little bit of both worlds. Besides considering what you want your pencils to actually be able to do, you're also going to need to consider your budget. Pencils can be purchased in large sets that results in a smaller price per pencil, but some of these large sets can be several $100s. Investing in a fine art material is always going to be a little bit expensive and is an investment. This is an investment that is going to last a long time. These colored pencils do not run out quickly, and unlike paint, they're not going to dry up or have a shortened lifespan for any reason. It's just however much you use them. What I want you to do is assess how much money you actually have to spend on colored pencils and select a set accordingly. You don't have to get that 72 set or that 100 set right out of the gate. You could probably get away with one of the 40 to 60 sets if that is a better fit for your specific budget. Now, I have links to all of the different colored pencil sets that I have mentioned in this video in the links below, and I have them broken down into different size sets. So you can go down there, shop around, and see which set is going to be the best fit for you. The next thing you need to consider are what are your specific artistic goals? Are you looking into colored pencil painting as a hobby, or are you hoping to eventually sell and display your work? If you are planning to sell and display your work, I would definitely recommend that you invest in a highly light fast set of colored pencils. And as a reminder, this is going to be your luminance colored pencils, your polychromos colored pencils, your Pablo colored pencils, and your Derwent light fast. All of these are very high grade, highly light fast colored pencils. If, however, you are a high school student, you're just trying this out as a hobby, or you would like to start out with a less expensive set to see if you really like it, then the light fastness of your colored pencils is not going to be as big of a factor. If you fall into one of these categories, you might consider trying out Prismacolor for your wax-based colored pencils, and then select a smaller set of polychromos colored pencils for your oil-based colored pencils. Regardless of your artistic goals, it's important that you are using artist grade colored pencils. Do not use the colored pencils that are for adult coloring books or crafting or annotating textbooks. These are not made to be compatible with things like colored blender, solvent, and they are really a pain to work with. So whatever you do, make sure that if you are using colored pencil as a fine art medium, that you buy artist grade colored pencils. The last thing I want you to consider is the specific colors that you're going to need for your colored pencil painting. Now, you might have developed a personal aesthetic over several years, and you might have very specific colors that you use in your artwork. Make sure that you take this into account when you purchase your colored pencils, and make sure that the colors that you want to use are available in the set that you purchase. If you are going to purchase a smaller set of colored pencils, like a 40 set instead of the 72 set, look carefully at the colors that are in this set and make sure they're going to meet your needs. For example, I love the luminance colored pencils, but the luminance set of 40 does not come with a true red. And that can be problematic if you're working in portraits, florals, or just about anything else. So if you purchase that particular set, you might want to add an additional red to your collection. You'll also want to take into account the subject matter you'll predominantly be working with. So if you're a portrait artist and you're going to be working primarily on portraits, you're probably going to be going through those warm neutrals much quicker than you will the bright greens and bright blues. And you're going to need to replace these colored pencils more frequently. So you're going to want to make sure that the colored pencils you select are available in open stock. Now, all of the colored pencils that I've mentioned in this video are available in open stock at dickblick.com. But if you're planning on going into a physical art supply store or shopping at a different realtor, make sure that they have your particular colored pencils in open stock, meaning that you can purchase one pencil at a time and you don't have to purchase an entire set to get that one white colored pencil that you ran out of. In this fifth and final portion of the video, I'm going to share with you a couple of excerpts from my online course, Intro to Classical Colored Pencil Painting. In the first excerpt, I'm going to show you how I use my oil-based colored pencils on sanded paper. And in this particular clip, I'm using polychromos colored pencils. Now you will begin laying color over your sealed value underpainting. And because you use that textured fixative, your value underpainting is not going to be altered in any way. Instead, you're going to be laying transparent color over the top of your value painting. When you lay color down over the top of your value underpainting, your pencils do not need to be sharp unless you're working on very fine detail. You also don't need to take into account the value of the surface that you're drawing, only the local color. Because you have this value underpainting already established, this transparent color is going to change in value as it moves over a darker part of the underpainting. As we move into a lighter part of the underpainting, the value of that color is also going to change because we're laying transparent color right over the top. In this second excerpt, I'm using just my wax-based colored pencils, and because they are more opaque, I'm able to build up more specific color. I'm able to keep it a little bit more permanent on my paper, and I'm able to lay my white highlights directly on top of everything else that I have worked on. I love not having to reserve my highlights from the very beginning, and that is something that is just so awesome about this process. Check it out. Here, I'm slowing down the recording a little bit, and I'm showing you how I'm going to lay in that white highlight on top of the neck of the pear. Again, I'm coming in with a very sharp white colored pencil. This is a wax-based colored pencil, and that's an important detail because the wax-based colored pencils are more opaque. I'm drawing in the specific shape of the highlight, and I'm working with those small circular motions with quite a bit of pressure to really build them up to keep them on the top of the colored pencil painting. Those most opaque parts are going to come towards your viewer first, and then they will establish the hierarchy, leading your viewer's eye throughout the colored pencil painting into those more transparent areas. In this video, you have learned the difference between wax and oil-based colored pencils, how these pencils perform differently on sanded paper, the specific pros and cons of each of the major pencil lines out there, and how to select the right colored pencil for you. You've also got to see these pencils in action a little bit in an excerpt from my online course. If you found this video helpful, you'll probably find my other content helpful as well. So make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, connect with me over on social media, and check out my online course over on my website. I appreciate you stopping by and taking the time to watch this video, and I can't wait to connect with you again soon. But until next time, make sure you get out there and learn something new, make something beautiful, and take care of yourself. See ya.